So without a doubt, one of the biggest surprises of 2023 was Hi-Fi Rush. Xbox shadow dropped this out of nowhere. Somehow it didn't leak, somehow nobody saw this coming, and somehow it was actually pretty good. Now, rhythm games are not typically my forte, but when I saw that it had shadow dropped and the general reception was pretty positive, I figured why not give it a shot, and I was pleasantly surprised at how fluid it felt and how crazy high the production value was across the board. Now, the game has a narrative, a story that's actually really quirky and funny, and I can't recommend it enough, especially being on Game Pass. There's no added cost to trying it out, so like, why not just give it a shot? If you're somebody that's really bad at rhythm games, it happens, no worries. You tried it, it wasn't for you, but if you really like rhythm games, it can be an awesome time and a fun little treat that's totally different from most of the games that you're playing right now. However, after I finished the game, I set the controller down and uninstalled it, feeling pretty confident that I had gotten my time's worth out of it, and I wasn't going to do any big videos on it, but I was really glad that I had played it just for my own self-satisfaction. And then out of the blue, Bethesda reached out and said that they were updating the game with a bunch of free additions that promised to add a bunch of gameplay time, so I decided to give it a shot. The free new update adds 2 new game modes, all sorts of new features, new songs, and a bunch of cosmetic items to boot. The first new mode is called BPM Rush. This is a pretty standard rush mode that you would be familiar with in a lot of other games. However, it challenges you to survive multiple waves of enemies, trying to avoid damage as best you can to fill up a meter that will then eventually summon a boss, and upon defeating that boss, you get to go to the next phase, which also brings with it a higher BPM, or beats per minute. This means that as you level up and get higher and higher and higher, the rhythm of the game increases faster and faster and faster, which also amps up the feeling of combat. It's really hard to describe unless you're playing it, but it gets crazy and your heart rate is also going to rise. I didn't think I could get like so sweaty and intensely focused on a rhythm cartoony game like this, but seriously, this really does up the stakes. It's wild how much something like this can actually change the experience. So if you're somebody that really enjoyed Hi-Fi Rush to begin with, and you're just looking for some sort of sustained game mode that you can take a crack at, this is a great option. The second mode included in the free update is Power Up Tower Up, which challenges players to take on the Rhythm Tower Challenge, but this time around it introduces a lot more roguelite elements. Basically, for each run of this tower, you're going to start with a multiplier, and that multiplier can be changed based on what upgrades and abilities you choose to take on. If you take on abilities that make it easier to get through a combat challenge, you're not going to get as big of a multiplier versus choosing something that makes it way harder to take on that combat challenge, if that makes sense. An example would be one upgrade I was prompted with made it so each strike that I successfully landed helped me regain health. And as a result of choosing this option, I saw a severe penalty to my final multiplier, which affects my final score. On the contrary, there was an ability that greatly increased the total cooldown time for my companions. And as a result of choosing this, I would see an increase to my multiplier, again increasing my final score. The great thing about this, again, is if you're just looking for more Hi-Fi Rush, more sustained gameplay that's not tied up in a narrative you've already seen, you can just play this and you have tens at least of hours at your disposal to grind your way up that Rhythm Tower Challenge or through the BPM Rush mode. I was able to put in 2 hours without even realizing how much time had passed just by trying to get my feet under me. I have no doubt that I could spend 20, 30, 40 hours grinding this just while watching a show or something on the second monitor. You know, this is one of those updates that introduces game modes which are great for passive consumption like that. The update also adds new special attacks featuring Cinnamon and Smidge, a bunch of additions to the photo mode, some new outfits and cosmetics, and all told, it's just a great excuse to go back to a game that, even though it only launched a few months ago, a lot of us have moved on from simply because we played it, it was really cool, but then it was over. This is a great chance to get back into it, and I will say, having gone back, it's a little bit jarring to go back after taking some time off, and then you're like, okay, what were the combos? How did I do that juggle thing? And okay, well, this companion does that. It takes a little bit to get the muscle memory back, but dang, this is a great way to do it. And if you're expecting me to say anything like negative or mean, I don't really have anything. Like, it's just a really solid free update to the game that you probably already have if you are interested enough to click on this video. And free content is always good. And this isn't just like a little 15-minute quest. This is like hours upon hours upon hours of content that you can get out of these different modes that they've added. It's like a lot. You know, Hi-Fi Rush is not for everybody, but that's the great thing about a service like Game Pass, even though it has some other drawbacks, is that it allows you to try games like this that you wouldn't try otherwise. I probably would never have played something like Hi-Fi Rush if it hadn't shadow dropped, surprising everybody and getting my curiosity up real high, and if it also was not on Game Pass. As for how profitable it was, I have no idea, but judging by the reception and the interest in the title, it seems to me that a lot of people at the very least played it and enjoyed it, which is all you can really ask for anybody to do with your video game, right? And it also gets me wondering if we're gonna see like other games shadow drop on Game Pass. Like, is that going to be a marketing strategy they start to employ? Is that gonna be one of the new metas of the industry, that you just start shadow dropping stuff? I would enjoy it. It's really exciting to just be like, oh, that game looks interesting and it's available now. That's awesome. I don't know how you keep it secret for some of these bigger releases, because it seems like every studio nowadays struggles with leaks and stuff. But either way, Hi-Fi Rush, it's a solid game, a really good game, little niche, little quirky, but really unique and fun. And it's getting a massive update that adds a ton of content if you're interested. Like, it's just solid. Now, I have by no means finished the update. I've not pushed to the EX extreme level of the BPM rush mode or anything, but I know that when I'm on the plane tomorrow from when I'm filming this video, I'm going to be playing this on my ROG Ally, and I'm going to be having a great time. And that's all I can really ask, is for cool updates that justify me going back to games I played months ago or years ago that I enjoyed, but I just ran out of content in. Let me know what you think in the comments, if you're going to be jumping back into Hi-Fi Rush to see what this update is like. And as always, I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you for watching. I love you all more than you could possibly know. Stay safe out there. Hugs and kisses. Bye-bye.